So just pop them in the chat. Give me some Camembert tips. Hi, John. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can. How are you?
Right. I am well. I am well.
Good. Where are you joining us from? Somewhere sunny, I think.
So Sacramento, California, and I had to come outside. I got two kids at school at home in school, so outside was the best place for me to go.
Makes sense. Yeah, homeschooling is rough. I do not envy you in any way. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and I'm going to invite you on stage.
Excellent. Thank you. Ooh. So, as a kid who grew up in California, I never thought I'd be spending so much time in Cleveland. Now, you see, my dear wife is youngest of 10, and all of her family is in Cleveland. And so it was the late 90s, and we'd been visiting for a couple of weeks, and I was done. Now, don't get me wrong, I love her family, but I had to get back and start a new school year. So the plan was for me to drive back and for her to fly back a couple of weeks later. So I get on the road and I make it just past Omaha, Nebraska. And I get up super early the next morning, break of dawn, and I'm back on the road and I'm in the zone. Now, what you need to understand, two things. One is, for me, it's Interstate 80 all the way home, nearly to my door back in California. So it's a straight shot. The other thing is, especially that part through Nebraska, there's nothing out there. It's flat and featureless. So, as I said, I'm in the zone. I'm driving. Occasionally something would catch my eye. And like I saw this farmhouse and there was this kind of unusually large ceramic gnome with a little wry smile and a little jaunty outfit. I took note and I kept driving. Nothing out there. I keep going. And then I saw this life-size plywood silhouette cutout of a cowboy leaning against a tree. He had a little bandana around his neck, and I thought, oh, and I kept driving. Again, like seemingly hours, miles of nothing. And then I see this ridiculously yellow house, neon yellow in the middle of nowhere. And I think, oh, that's weird. And I keep driving. So eventually I need a pit stop and I find an exit. I get some food, use a restroom, fill up with gas, get right back on the road. And again, I'm in the zone. And then, remarkably, I see another neon yellow house, blazingly neon. And I think to myself, huh, they must have had a deal on yellow paint. And I keep driving. And then I see this life-size plywood silhouette cutout of a cowboy leaning against a tree with a little bandana around his neck. And I think, huh, those are pretty popular here in Nebraska. And I keep driving. And then I'm driving and I catch my eye on this garden gnome. He's got a little wry smile and a little jaunty outfit. And I think to myself, man, that little guy is astoundingly similar to the one I saw earlier this morning, except the one I saw this morning was on the other side of the highway. And then something I forgot to tell you is I said I'm headed back to California to start a new school year. Teaching geography. I teach geography. And so, of course, I am petrified at that moment that I might be driving the wrong direction. I have no idea for how long. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what? I'm looking for Interstate 80 west because I want to be going west. And I don't see any signs. There's no exit. There's no signage. And then I think to myself, I'm going to science this. I'm a smart guy. So I know that I'm at about 40 degrees north latitude, and I know that Earth is tilted at a 23.5-degree angle from a perpendicular to the plane of the ecliptic. And I know that it's mid-August, so the declination of the sun should be about 16 degrees north of the equator. And so I'm doing all these calculations in my head, and it's about 11 o'clock, but then I adjust for daylight savings time. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm driving the right way, if I'm headed west, the sun is going to be right there over my shoulder. And I look, not there. If I'm driving east in the wrong direction, the sun is going to be right about there. And there it is. I am crushed. I have no idea how long I've been driving in the wrong direction. Eventually, I find an exit. I almost had made it back to Omaha, Nebraska. I get turned around. I head back out on Interstate 80 for the third time that day. I drive by that dang little gnome. I drive by that stupid cowboy. I drive by that ridiculously yellow house. And eventually I need gas. And I pull off into the same gas station that I had filled up earlier that morning. And I fill up again. I had driven an entire tank of gas to nowhere, 160 miles in the wrong direction and back. Now, in the years after that, I had some time to ponder that experience. And I got to tell you, my students think it's hilarious. It's a really good object lesson when you talk about the sun and sun angles and time. But more importantly, I've learned some really important lessons. First of all, you got to own your mistakes. And if it's an epic mistake, just own it epically. You got to learn to laugh at yourself. And most importantly, never take yourself too seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love that. Please, anyone here that makes t-shirts, please can you make me a t-shirt that says I'm gonna science this? That line was great. Thank you. So Ray, I'm gonna come to you for some feedback.
Yeah, I love that. It was really funny. I love the teasing that we're going, and like there's a gnome, which is like also kind of like creepy. Like a part of me when you started talking about the gnome, I was like, oh my god, there's gonna be like ghosts and stuff involved, like something about that. And then the cowboy, and then the house, and then the house, and then the cow. When it got to the gnome again, I was like, oh my god, it's the same place. So there's one reveal there, which I thought was hilarious, but there's a second reveal, and that's that you're a geography teacher. And like that is the funniest thing, because I do think it's important for also like scientists to, as you said, like not take themselves that serious. And I thought that was just so funny. And then you do all the calculations and everything. I think what I was very curious about was what you were feeling, right? Because we hear a lot about all the cognitive things that is going to your head, all the processes, the scientist side of you that is doing the calculation. I think I was very, very curious to know how you felt the moment, like, on you, and was like, oh my god, like the geography teacher is going the same back, and then it happened again. So what were you feeling? What were you like emotional thoughts? As like, did you feel like embarrassed and like, oh my god, I need to tell this story at some point to my students? Were you like scared? Did you feel like you're in the matrix and everything is like happening again? So I wanted to hear more a lot about your emotions too, but that was like a really fun story. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the advice.
Yeah, I love the idea. I'm thinking like you might be in the Matrix, like those where you're like, I can't really be going the wrong way. What other weird explanations could there be for this? Or like when you were talking about, you were saying about how maybe they just really like painting their houses yellow around here. Like maybe that's a thing. I like those thought processes of like us understanding those weird things your brain does because you can't accept that you might have just driven the wrong way. Michaela, how about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that story. I love these long US drives or like North American drives you can do and just be like for so long before you like it can be so long before you realize you've made a mistake. Like that's just there's another great story by Kate Greathead that's also about like just driving in the US, and I love things like that. But yeah, I was curious, so I was feeling about like were there other people, like were people wondering where you were if you spent like a whole, were you in contact with anyone else? Like when did you decide, like who was the first person you had to admit it to? Like, because I feel like now, great. It can be useful in stories or teaching, and it sounds like it's great hearing how useful it is and how engaging it is, because it's obviously such a great story. But the first time you had to admit it, was that crushing? Was that like, what did that feel like? It's really curious.
Yeah, that's great advice. There's a longer version, and then you start to edit and get shorter, and then sometimes you edit out things that might have been useful. Yeah, I didn't tell people for a while.
I think I would be that.
And it was before I had a cell phone, so there was no connectivity at all. So.
Yeah. I love though that, like Michaela says, that you use this story to try and teach that aspect of using the sun, and how can you then like work out where exactly you're going. I think that's so important to what we do here, is like, you can use these stories as teachable moments as well. So thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I will be thinking about driving past yellow houses all evening now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.